All right, many thanks, Ibrahim Dan Hamidu, for that background report. And to begin our conversation, let me welcome here in the studio Dr. Olajumoke Adeniyi, Head of Operations at Hassam Foundation and a gender advocate. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me. It's indeed a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to having a very fruitful and impactful conversation with you this morning.
Thank you. Henry.
All right. Also here with us for the conversation is Lady Ejiro Umukoro, an author, the author of Discussion, and the executive director, Light Ray Media. Many thanks for joining us.
A pleasure to be here with both of you.
All right. Also joining us for the conversation, but from our Benin studio, is Chief Bisi Idaume, Esquire, the Honorable Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, Edo State. Many thanks for joining us, Madam.
For having me. I'm so happy to be here today, being International Women's Day, being celebrated in Benin today. Thank you.
All right, let me just begin with you from Benin. From where you stand, what's the rating of gender equality and whatever it is that comes with it in Nigeria, from where you stand?
Morning again. Gender inequality has been a problem in so many years, and today it's still on. The cultural norms of our society is one of the reasons why there's gender bias. Also, lack of legislation or good policies to make sure that the women are treated fairly and equally. I would also say that lack of empathy for the violence against women. And well, we have the legal framework, but there's enough has not been done for this to be properly addressed. Also, the disparity in pay between the men and the women in the same work places. Also, lack of economic empowerment for the female. These are some of the reasons we still have inequality between the men and the women of Nigeria. If I could stop here for now.
All right. Many thanks, Madam Idaume, for your response to that question. Let's get back in the studio. Of course, we'll get back to you. I'd like to speak with Dr. Adeniyi now. Listening to the Commissioner for Women Affairs, Edo State, talk about lack of laws and all of that. And I'm asking, are there really no laws? What really are the issues? I mean, the Beijing Declaration, this is 30 years, or marking 30 years. I mean, it's a long time. We have some laws right here in Nigeria. We know some states have also come up with some laws to protect women, right to inheritance and all of that. So what really are the issues for us here in Nigeria? Why does it look like we're not making much progress?
Thank you very much for that question. One of the challenges that we faced in Nigeria, number one, it's not the absence of the law. The laws are there, but the laws are not being enforced. There are some people that even think that they are somewhat above the law. We see different scenarios that I would not like to talk about or mention, and which makes us feel like nobody should be above the law. That's number one. The laws must be properly enforced. And what of the place of quality education? Even the people who are being protected by law, a lot of these women do not even know that there are laws that exist. They are not being properly educated. And there's not even enough grassroots reach out or mobilization. Yes, Nigeria happens to be the populous country, the most populous country in Africa. Nigeria is the lowest when it comes to gender inequality in Africa. We have the highest rate of gender inequality. And beyond that, we need to look at how do we enforce these laws. When we see the people who are ready to do the work, are we ready to give them the opportunity to do the work? Or is it because, are we doing it based on nepotism? Are we doing it based on, she's from my tribe, or based on tribalism? No. We need to look at those who are qualified and let them do what they are meant to do. Those who have the experience, those who have the passion, those who are not just there because of what they want to get. That's why those are the people we need to look out for. And those are the people we need to empower and ensure that these people are carrying out the work to the places when you can't change a system that is working. And if you see that we've been doing the same thing again and again and it's not working, then it's time for us to accelerate the change. We can't afford to do the same thing and expect to get different results. That's the beginning of what they call foolishness. So we need, and we are not a foolish country. Nigeria is a great country. It's blessed. I will never be in a position to speak negative about my nation.
So who would you say, is doing the same thing, or is not accelerating progress, like you have said, or not making the change that we need? Would you say is government? I mean, if you want to look at this present administration, they have done their part in trying to make sure that women get, positions, in different spheres and all, trying to empower women. Well, we know what the First Lady is doing and all. But, I mean, these issues still remain. Women themselves, are they ready for this change?
The women are more than ready for the change. Beginning from each and every household. That's one of the things I talk about. We say the women are not as paid as the men are being paid. When you look at the women working in your household, how many of the people can truly say that the woman that is your cleaner, she's earning more than the man that is your driver? Or the woman taking care of your children, who is your nanny? How well do you handle our pay from each and every one of us as individuals before we even point at the government? Secondly, those people at the government level, how are you making sure that we are bridging the gap? Are we just there? It's not everyone that is out there for their pockets. That's one thing I want to always correct, because people believe, whenever you are in the position of authority, you're just there because you want to. I have met with people who are truly impacted. They have the impact, they have the passion to carry out and ensure that the change is being seen. And this is what we stand for. So it starts from us as individuals. What mentality are we working with in changing this patriarchal society? We have a patriarchal society. There's no doubt about that. The government is trying to make sure that they are putting more women into the position, but we need more. We have not even gotten to the standard. There's a standard for how many women are well represented at the leadership level. And then this is why we need to ensure that, okay, we have women, but we need more women. We appreciate the effort of our government. We appreciate the effort of this dispensation. It's fantastic compared to the previous dispensation. But we should not take away the need for more women being represented in leadership positions.
All right. Dr. Adeniyi, thank you very much. Let me bring Lady E into this conversation. Do you agree that there are gaps? What are these gaps? In what areas? And why do they persist?
We always must start from the root cause of a problem. There is a mentality in Nigeria that we have. And then there's also the confusion between equality and equity. The perception in the Nigerian male psyche, when you talk about equality, is that you're trying to do my job as a man. You're trying to take over my responsibility as a man. You're trying to take all the opportunities I have as a man. So that gap, that disconnect of feeling threatened by the conversation of equality for men and women is something we need to address. In other words, we need to clarify for our gender, the men and the women who are listening to us here, because media literacy is very important. Equality is about opportunities. It's about your status as a person. It's about your rights. That's equality. So you as a man, you have a right to job. A woman also has a right to job. There are opportunities. In politics, a man is easily picked and mentored even when he has no experience. If you can extend that to a man, you should extend that to a woman. Don't say because she's inexperienced, so therefore she's not qualified, because you don't do that to a man who is inexperienced. Instead, you say, we can mentor him. He will learn along the way. And then we talk about rights. Right here is in conversation of As a human being, you are born free. You are born with inalienable rights to, one, the choices you make, where you're going to live, the money you're going to earn, that power to be able to negotiate it and accept it for that as well. But we also need to look at the fundamentals of how do we get to the point where we realize that it is not a competition. Equality is not a competition. Equality is about understanding that you have rights as a human being, you have opportunities as a human being, and you're not a second-class citizen in your country. We see how this plays out, for example, when a woman wants to have a husband, and you now tell her that unless, for example, applying for a visa or going overseas, we see that in northern Nigeria. So we have inherently a cultural, misogynistic, patriarchal mindset that tells a woman you are a second-class citizen, you need the permission of your husband. So in a way, culture, tradition, and religion has subjugated women as lower second-class citizens. And as a human being, you will fight that. Imagine the reverse were the case. That maybe even in Ghana that is matriarchal, right, in nature, you don't see that kind of, intensity of fight compared to Nigeria that is patriarchal. Instead, what you see is that you understand that because of the culture and the respect for women, for bringing birth to life, every man came through a woman. Every single man came to a woman. So understanding the spirituality of that is very important. And we need to just give it respect and not demean it. That's on the one side. That's matriarchy for you. Then you talk about patriarchy, where misogyny in northern Nigeria, because I am also part of what I do, I'm also an investigative journalist. The last time I did an investigative piece throughout this period, right, when I observed the gender-based violence, what is driving it, and I was opportune by the Police Center in the USA, recognized for this work, was that I discovered that if a religion teaches a man that a woman has a right to be beaten by her husband in the name of discipline, what you have done is you have enabled a society where a man feels, I am above you, I have the right to beat you, I will discipline you according to my terms because my religious belief tells me that I have the right to do that. Now you explore that. Yeah.
You say, you talk about all of this. At first, you started with the second-class citizen. Would you say it's the men that, makes the women feel that way, or the women themselves just naturally place themselves in that position? And then when you talked about mentoring men and women not getting the opportunities, who should mentor the women? Are the women, willing to mentor younger women? You talked about, she talked about having more women, take more space politically and all of that. The few that have taken positions, how well have they represented? So, going forward, don't you think that there's a problem with the women themselves in all of this conversation?
I think we should be careful when we perpetuate narratives like that in open discourse like this. Because one, I will just give you a very powerful example. A Muslim man tell me, apologies to all Muslims, it is not intended as an attack. I want everybody to be clear on that, please. The religious man told me that his own Quran teaches him that it is his right to discipline the woman. In Niger Delta, the tradition teaches the man that he can beat his wife and discipline the wife. So what we're looking at is this. We're looking at a situation where a society is enabling one particular sex to have the power, right, to discipline somebody.
And then women give it that power when, for example, a girl is getting married and the mother tells the girl, well, you should listen to your husband, and if he beats you, you remain there.
Now, this is going back to the root cause of what I said. A cultural practice where you tell a people that marriage is the ultimate definition of a woman's attainment in life, right? And that if you leave your home as a divorcee, you have stigma for the rest of your life. We need to address that. We cannot, in one hand, tell a woman you are free, you have a right to be everything. And then on the other hand, we now take all away all of that freedom and tell her that if she gets out from a home where there is violence, where there is abuse, then she's a divorcee with a stigma. Do you get what I mean? So that becomes a very huge problem. You put a woman between the deep blue sea and hell. Where do you want her to escape from? And then when we talk about opportunities, I think this is the next conversation we should have. We must begin to raise women when it comes to accountability. I am not saying that men bears the whole brunt. I am saying that the way we have fashioned our culture is enabling it to look as though men can get away with more. why women are actually prevented from achieving more. So what we need to do as women now going forward is this. You cannot, under any circumstance, accept a situation where your right as a woman is not fairly treated. Equity is about fairness and justice. So if you understand that, you know that if you're in a marriage that is almost going to destroy you, you don't care about society. We must come to that point. It's accountability. You don't care about society, you walk away. Because the reason why women stay in battered relationship is because there is nobody to welcome them when they escape. So we need to address
Including
All
women.
right.
Including women.
Let me put you on hold now and introduce the Minister of Women Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
And let me probably run you straight into this conversation. Now, gender equality has been a national policy for years. Yet, you know, progress remains slow, and it has been also corroborated by most of the guests here in the studio and beyond. So from a policy perspective, what key interventions are making the most impact, and where are we lacking?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me and use the opportunity to wish everyone, all of you, a happy International Women's Day, Women's Month. And I'd like to also, commend the energy in the room, because I heard all the conversation going on. Talking about policies to address, an existing inequality. We have the gender policy. We're going to work on it. But if you look at it, I must commend the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Already, it has demonstrated, that political way when it comes to inclusivity. You can see that we have a number of women holding very strategic positions when it comes to appointive positions. And in the areas of the elective positions, we have to start from the party structures. We have to begin to see women in administrative roles, and that's what we're advocating for. If you look around our strategic action plan for the next 3 years, 2025 to 2028, that is one of the core activities that would happen. You see us, sensitize and work with political parties to see that they have about 35% of the administrative roles are women, so that we begin to see even women around the party structures, because that would breathe. These women can transit and become contestants or aspirants for positions, because in the place whereby you go and all the directors of admin, the directors of operations in the party are men, so women wouldn't come there. So that's the starting point. And we'll also put in mentoring structures within our strategic action plan to see that we're mentoring women and girls. Because if you want to play and win, you must be able to know the rules. So mentoring is going to be one of the core activities that we do to ensure that women are not only interested, but they're ready to participate.
Now,
in
mentoring,
yes.
That's the key.
And then lastly, very importantly, we're going to also be able to sensitize across, society, so that we recognize the importance of having that inclusivity. That is very important that we have that balance when it comes to problem solving, providing solutions, because women are mentoring differently. And even children right now are advocating to be on the table. So it's very important that we understand that it's not a competition. We're not trying to kind of, dominate. But it's just that it's important that we have different perspectives when it comes to addressing problems and national development.
Many thanks, Honourable Minister. You just touched on the point I was trying to emphasize, and the question I asked Lady Ejiro Omukoro, talking about mentoring, talking about sensitization. With every year, on March 8, women gather around the world. We're saying the same thing. And like someone said in the room, things haven't really changed. It looks like some things are not being done right. And, someone also said that it's important that we change the way we do things. Talking about changing the way we do things, this question is to the Honourable Commissioner. Don't you think it's time that women begin to talk to themselves about some of these issues? I'm saying that because, I agree with all that has been said here. And of course, as a woman, I understand what, the pains and the struggles and all of that. But don't you think that women need to sit up on some of these issues and begin to show that they understand what we mean when we talk about equality? I said that because, what's the current trend, for example? You see a woman come up, speaks out, and it is women who are hushing her. All right? You see a woman wanting to get a political position, and it is women who tell her, go back to the kitchen. Agreed that, yes, the men would say, yes, you shouldn't be out there. But the women also don't support. We've seen that play out all of the time. So how do we change this conversation such that we're not just asking the men, okay, give us a seat on the table, let's have this, such that women can speak up, women can support other women, not just lip service, women supporting women, lip service kind of thing, but action. Imagine, I mean, looking at the voting population, those who registered for the last election, we had more women. So imagine all the women came out and rallied behind women, contestants, would be somewhere. Honorable Commissioner, what do you think about this?
This is a very important subject you've just raised. I don't understand why we will continue to say there's inequality when amongst ourselves we don't really love ourselves. We don't really love ourselves. And thank you for allowing me to speak on this issue. We must begin to understand that if we are not united as women, seeking equal rights for ourselves, the men are never going to listen to us. So, for me, I've just been appointed as the Commissioner for Women Affairs, and in the last 6 weeks, I've involved women from all sectors of society, political, NGOs, professionals. So when we have women in certain offices, starting from the Senate, the minister, and even deputy governors, they should begin to mentor women who are under them. Instead, what we have are these same women in leadership ignoring us, excluding us. Yes, the societal norms gives more power to the men, and also lack of empowerment is a problem. So we don't have enough economic powers like them. But if we come together and ask that politics be made cheaper, and we ask that people who have been able to get to certain offices remember to pull those of us who are under them to pull us up, I think they will begin to listen to us. And I'm happy my boss is here, the Minister for Women Affairs. I've since paid her a courtesy call, and she is out there with inviting 36 commissioners of Women Affairs and Social Development in the 36 states, and the mandate secretary of the FCT. She's pulling us up. She's always in touch. She has a forum where she addresses us at least once or twice a week. So I want other leaders, female leaders in other important offices to do this to women around them. And you will see that the leadership of the country, be it political or corporate, would see a change. They will see that there's no more envy and there's no more strife amongst us, and they will begin to listen to us.
Bisi Daumi, but let me stay with you, Honorable Commissioner. Now, Edo State has been quite vocal about gender equality initiatives. And so I would like to ask, what have been the key achievements so far, and what challenges remain?
Thank you very much. Like I said, I'm new, but from what I've seen, we've got the VAP law in place. This legal framework ensures that violence against persons prohibition is something not to be joked with. We have the SAC centers, the sexual assault referral centers in place. We're working very closely with ROLAC. We're working very closely with GIZ. And our governor, Senator Monday Okpeyolo, has given us a clear mandate that the women of Edo should not be left behind. the woman or child should not be abandoned. People living with disabilities must be included in everything that we do. Edo is a very dynamic state in the sense that the women here are knowledgeable, we know our rights, and we have a governor who's decided to give us this voice. But what I want to say is that my ministry, and like other ministries in other states, the Ministry of Women Affairs in other states, are not properly funded. So this is an opportunity to seek the support of the Minister for Women Affairs and the beautiful speakers on this program to ask for more economic empowerment for the women in Nigeria. Because when a woman is empowered, she can be abused. If you look at the statistics of female violence against female, you would readily find out that those people abused are from the very lower end income. Why is this happening? So we need to retrain the female mind, the girl child mind, that you are equal to your brothers. You're equal to the male counterparts in your family. And when we do this, we will be able to address the issue from the root cause before helping getting the government involved. Our homes must begin to play that role. The women folks in our homes must be empowered physically, mentally. They must be told to nurture their girl child, to give them that self-confidence so that as they begin to grow in society, they understand that they have a place in society and they should be educated from the get-go. They should be educated and they should be told that nothing is too big for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Commissioner. Let's get back here in the studio. While you were speaking, Dr. Adeniyi was, trying to respond, to some of the comments that you made, talking about the economic power for women and relating it with violence. You want to speak on that, and then how do we really improve, the economic power of women? There are so many programs, yet women don't seem to be rising up the ladder. What should we do?
Okay. Well, it's not as if women are not actually rising up the ladder. We need to look at the mentality. First and foremost, I was looking at what you said when we were talking about women training women. There is a mandate. And for when she talked about religion, there is a mandate. If somebody tells you that this is what is acceptable or this is what my religion says you should do, a God created you. At least this is Africa, and we believe in God. And he did not create you to be underneath somebody or to be a second-class citizen or to be treated like, as a doormat. We need to empower the women. Education, educating them across board. Where we have there is an informal level of education, there is a formal level of education. We've been seeing progress, but we need to do more. That's why the theme of International Women's Day of this year is we need to accelerate change. We need to do more. At the pace, we look at what have we done in the past year? How can we scale it up? How can we improve? There are partners willing to partner with us. At least I was in Lagos State for a while before we moved here to Abuja. And there were international partners. There are gender partners that are interested in partnering with people. A woman who is not financially empowered will have difficulty in living an abusive marriage in most cases. But you need to let her know that her life is more important. And we've even seen cases of people who are even educated. Because of the societal norm, they still choose to stay there. We need to keep on speaking and not in a way that we're going to stop. We can't afford to stop and slow down and say because we're not seeing progress, then we're going to stop. No. It's like a journey of 1,000 years. It has to be one step at a time. And we need to keep on looking at what we've done and how we can improve it. Now, concerning the people that are being abused, we need to ensure that we keep advocating. It's not just in March. Now, when we talk about this, is it only in March we're going to do it and then the rest of the month we keep quiet? We need to let the men know that, yes, each and every one of you came out through a woman. You are married to one. You will fall in love with one. You can't do without the women. The women are not asking you to leave. They are simply asking you, empower your wife. Empower the women in the community. She's not threatening you. For example, we see it's not just the government. This is quite across board. We see cases of individuals getting married to someone and say, "Oh, I don't want my wife to work. I want her to sit down." No. When you know, you need to look at what choices we're making. Individual women, the people who are joining the program, what decisions are you making? Is marriage the ultimate? No. You are beyond you. You can't afford to die as a Mrs. B or Mrs. A. What do you have? You have something that your creator created you for. And so we can't afford to live beyond that. Whichever religion you practice, you were made for a purpose. Identify the purpose, fulfill your call, train other people, impact them. And then it's not just a measure of, oh, how much am I making? How much are you bringing to the table? Trust me, you are bringing a lot to the table as a woman. You're bringing free emotional support. You're bringing free counseling. You're bringing child care. You're bringing house care. You're bringing food. It's not just money. The man will come and say, so we need to realize out there's so much that the woman is capable of doing when she's empowered of
Dr.
doing
Adeni,
this.
thank you very much. I
her.
like the fact that you landed on that empowerment note. For me, I've always considered empowerment as one quite abused word. Because when you hear empower, I look at today and you see empower the women, give us, and I make a mental picture. Where are the about women of this era? Where the Queen Aminas of this era? Where are the Ransom Kutis of this era? They didn't have to say, give me. They moved to get it. And then when you do the checks, you see that women have almost equal number, if not more, than the men. Women have more influence over the children, by the way. If you have a grown child who is going, of voting age, I can tell you for free that the mother is more likely to convince that child or that, individual than the father. And so why does it seem, Lady E, that we rely on give me, and once we get something, maybe it's an appointment, maybe it's this or that, we're just happy.
Let me go.
Okay, please do.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing this to fore. I must, state that, yes, we have systematic barriers, but we have to leave that space of entitlement. As women, we're so entitled. The men will fight you for anything like they would fight any man. That's natural instincts. As women, we must recognize ourselves as the majority in the country. First, your attitude will determine your altitude. So already we feel like victims. So we're waiting for people to do things for us. Whereas, if it's got to be, it's up to us as women. Like you've rightly mentioned, that women were leading in every sector. Everywhere I go, even when they do interviews for beneficiaries, you see that there's more women in the space. When you talk about micro and small businesses and nano businesses, women are leading. We talk about agriculture, women represent 70% of the smallholder farmers. And we kind of contribute 80% of the output in agriculture, despite the barrier when it comes to access to education, to financial education, access to finance, access to market. So these barriers do exist, and we still triumph. So now we have to go back to the table to see how can we galvanize? How can we work in a more coordinated manner? The gender space or the women's space is naturally abused. Why? Because the global lens is on only two things as of today: climate change and gender. So resources do go there, global resources. So people just want to do, and also when it comes to women, people forget that there's an authority that can upscale and upskill. So people do a lot in their own spaces. So women's activities are underreported. We're doing so much. In the this time next week, I'll be presenting our country statement on progress for the last 30 years since Beijing in New York. I'll be leading the delegation. But if you look at our report, I had to review it because the report was being done before I came into office because it underreported on our progress in the last 30 years. It underreported on our progress.
So are you saying we have made progress?
We've made progress. We've made significant progress. It's only in Nigeria that you see women leading in many sectors. We have over 10 MDs, that are MDs of banks in the banking sector. It's never happened in the previous 30 years, or in many countries it does not exist. We've had 2 Supreme Court judges. Chief Justices are women. So that means we've been able to rise in that sector.
And in governance?
In governance, we continue. Okay, in governance, in the last 2 heads of the Nigerian Immigration Services are women. It's never happened before. I stand before you as the one and the only police minister globally that is a female. Policing role is a male-dominated space. Nobody will see a woman to be able to create policies for police. But we've been able to even attain that. So you see that there's progress, but for us to be able to make significant progress, we have to work with concerted efforts.
Well, if you say we have
yes.
made progress in terms of women leading in different sectors, why has the issues, the challenges facing the everyday girl, violence against women and girls, is increasing? The numbers are increasing by the day. Why do we still have few women who have access to some of this, you know, I mean, it looks like the women who have access to some of these opportunities, you know, are still very few. Why
I recognize where you're coming from. But you know, in recognizing our challenges, we don't underplay our achievements. I'm a believer of, if you thank God for where you are, He takes you to where you want to go. We've achieved. It doesn't mean that we are there already, but we're making good progress. So now we have to go back to the drawing table as a team to see what can we do with concerted effort to move forward. I've done over about 7 interviews for the International Women's Day. Why? Why can't we just do 1 interview? Yesterday I went over 4. That's why you see me, I'm harassed. I've been going from pillar to post, supporting people because they organize International Women's Program. Why can't we do 1 big program? Amplify our voices. Be in the same room. Be on the same page. So everybody is operating in clusters.
Okay. I hear you, Honorable Minister. And to be honest, after all she said,
Yes.
Yenre could pick hole in, okay, what of in government? And I ask, why is it only in government that people say, you know, give me, you have not given me this number, you have not given me. If people could do it in other professional spheres, they didn't have to ask for it. They worked their way to the top. In banking, where she says you have up to 10, they worked their way to the top. I don't want to believe that they, you know, said, give me, and then they got it. No, but the president will always say, you know, power is not given, you know, it's not served a la carte.
No, but
so, Lady E, do you have a different
even in governance,
perspective
we have
to it?
women. If you look at NEMA,
Right? So, for example, now, let's understand that first and foremost, we've lived in a country where the male have often dominated. The era you talked about, Madam Igbo, right? The Aba Riot women era. That was an era in Nigeria where women, funny enough, and I think this is where media narrative is very important. In that era, women had voices. They fought against the British Empire. You cannot impose on us. Now, that kind of mentoring should have continued consistently, where women understand that you have the voice, you have the capacity, and you can go out there to do it.
So who dropped the ball?
So that said, who dropped the ball? Nobody really dropped the ball as much as this conversation where we're now saying, focus so much about educating women and leaving the boys. In fact, right now, because of a policy I'm working on, I am saying this conversation about girl education, and no boy education, it stops today. You've got to raise the same generation of boys and girls at the same time. You cannot raise a girl to become very sophisticated, highly educated, emotionally intelligent, and then you leave the young man to be where he is. And then eventually when she wants to now advance, where marriage it can be key to your success or failure, you now expose her to somebody who they are not at par. So we must close this gap real quick by ensuring that, 1, we need to retrain our boys. And that goes back to women. Women often are those who are supposed to raise children well. But that does not mean we want to encourage absentee fathers. Many fathers also need reorientation. Many fathers do not know what it means to be a father in terms of fatherhood and parenthood. Fatherhood is not parenthood. Fatherhood means you are present in the child's life. Just like you keep saying, mothers are closer to their sons. That's motherhood. Fatherhood means you two must play that game. Parenting is where you are now involved in the direction of how a child should go and what you must do as a father within the home. Because your children will model after you. It is what you model, they will copy. We have raised a society where a father and a mother will buy a computer for a child to enter Yahoo. Now, that shift in our cultural psyche, when it comes to our cultural values, is where the fundamental problem lies. So we must go back and address our fundamental values. And like she rightly stated, I was going to say it before she did, but I'm happy she mentioned it. The media is not pushing out narrative about women's successes. We need to do more of that. If you open the newspaper of today, you will see all the stories. They are too male-centered. I bet you on it. Open all the newspapers in Nigeria today. Go online and see all the stories in Nigeria today. It is too male-centric. Everything about a man does is there. But if you compare the number of, because we actually did that research, if you compare the number of women's stories that are told, they're so few or tucked away somewhere. So that's part of the conversation. A national narrative where the media itself and the churches, the mosque, the traditionalists, they are all having a voice and a platform for women to excel. And most importantly, women must understand that nobody is entitled to anything in this life. The only thing you're entitled to is the air that you breathe. But you see every other thing. Food, you have to work for it. Clothes you wear, you have to work for it. Anything you have to do to survive, you have to work for it. Air is the only free thing we are all entitled to. And if that is the case, it means that going forward, women must take on the mantle themselves to mentor the next generation of girls. I do that a lot. We do a lot of mentoring of many women, internationally, outside Nigeria, and Nigeria is inclusive. You must let the ladies see you lead. Leadership is seen, it is imitated, it is absorbed, it is also integrated and incorporated. So if you don't lead well, the girls will imitate that leadership. So we want to let children go on social media today, see what is happening to the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas. You're seeing a generation where the kind of leading women are exposed to on social media is not what we want. But the question is, why are we also pushing it? Why are we also amplifying it? Why are we giving them attention? It is what you push out in public and everybody engages in it, that's when it becomes a problem. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. We have the Child's Right Act. Today, the law says that if you call any child a houseboy or a housegirl, you're in trouble. Yet people don't know that law. So the media needs to equip media literacy of the minds and the psyche of us as a people. We need to change our mindset.
All right.
We need to change our value system.
Well said, Lady Ejiro Mokoro. You know, you're talking about the media not, bringing out stories, or if you like, focusing on women in stories. Well, I would want to ask, are women willing to tell their stories in the first place?
Yes, women are.
Because, the media would take what is out there. She just talked about being a former Minister of Police Affairs. Mm-hmm. How many stories about her we're reading at that time?
Okay.
How many stories? About
I
women.
read a lot.
Okay, well,
exactly.
maybe that's maybe that's her. All right, no, that's him. That's him. No, I'm trying to say something
because
that we have women in sensitive positions. We have women that you have talked about in the banking sector. Are they willing to share their stories for the younger girl?
I agree with you.
Let me
Do you
come
understand?
in.
To
Please,
connect with.
It's very important that I come in at this stage. Yes.
Right? In
You
Delta
know,
State, we
you
couldn't
know,
bring her
you
to
know.
come and speak on the BBC.
Yeah.
They
That's a
invited
good
me to say, bring this commissioner
Yeah.
to come and talk, because we wanted to amplify the education, the drive to education, where it's going, how it's going, and projections. And for the life of me, I did not know why this commissioner would not come on board. So where am I going to with this conversation? You see, when politics, right, chooses to appoint certain capacities over others. So if you decide that somebody to be a commissioner is based on the fact that this person has worked with us, this person has paid the dues, rather than get somebody who has the capacity both in public speaking, in ability to engage, in order to bring together stakeholders, and in order to also be very positioned in addressing and be sound in that space, you now make a compromise where that gap now begins to exist. We have too many of that, and in that sense, I agree with you. But we're not telling women, if you are given an opportunity to come and speak, no matter how short, please speak.
Okay.
The Honourable Minister wants to respond.
She wants to respond.
Okay, let me respond to what you've just said now. Everybody has their own style, leadership style. Nobody has monopoly of know-how or knowledge or skill, but you can always work on it. So that commissioner easily could have been mentored and encouraged to be able to, like me, I'm a very shy person. I don't like to be on the camera. I like to work in the background. But knowing that my role entails that I showcase the work that I do. Everything I do is in the open. Every movement I make in this role and in my previous role have been in the open. That helps to build confidence. That helps people to know that even though you're not doing enough, but you're doing something. So it's work in progress. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about women's stories, it also has to do with role models. Because women are not out there. Women that are actually doing it are not out there. So our girls, our boys end up with the wrong role models. Mm-hmm. That would like, and that's why I agree with you totally that, when we do stuff, we have to be out there. We have to work with the media houses. The media also have got to be more professional and more patriotic. Because sometimes, you know, I know that they run businesses, but sometimes it's all about relationships as well. So it's not just about the money. They have to know that they also have an obligation when it comes to national development. So they have to tell the stories as they are. And talking about telling stories, for the first time, one of our main side event in New York at the CSW would focus on telling women's stories. Because as the report for the Beijing Plus 30 is concerned, they said that Nigeria we've underachieved, and I don't agree. Talking about governance, because someone mentioned that, what about governance? If we've achieved in other sectors, we've achieved in governance. For the first time, we have a DG for NEMA who is a woman. For the first time, we have women that are heading very strategic and very sensitive positions in the satellite space. Women. There's a transition. For the first time, we have a woman who is heading the national, the investment, company for Nigeria, for the country, and even the Export Promotion Council is a woman. We have a woman in NIMSI who took over from a man.
Fantastic.
So we do have women that
Yes,
are coming
we
up.
have
So
women.
let's not undertell our story. Let's recognize the progress that we have made, and then let's come together and recognize that there's an authority. No matter what individuals do in their private spaces, nobody can do it as government, because the primary role of government is welfare and well-being. And these policies are domiciled with government. So when we do, because I see people come to my office and say, oh, I've done X, Y, Z, and I said it's not reported. I don't have it in my reports. So if you do things, you do need to support the national interest. When you align with the government can upscale and upskill and amplify. When you do it on your own, thinking that, oh, I'm a savior, I'm a messiah, guess what? There's so much that you can do.
You know,
government has the resources to be able to add to what you're doing. So it's very important that we learn to, support government, because this is a government obligation.
Yeah.
All these things we're talking about.
Yes.
But government can't do it alone.
Honorable Minister, from what
Yes.
you have said,
Yes.
it's clear that there are women who are leading.
Yeah.
But maybe, like we have mentioned in this room, the gap is that mentoring, having to pull up more women up, just so that in the next 5-10 years, we're talking about women, occupying the table. And then we're talking about spaces for men.
Yeah.
Such that, look at the women in banking, like you've mentioned, the women in all these agencies you have mentioned.
What
Imagine
about women let me talk about women in security. Security is for many years. You didn't even have women go to NDA. But now we have women going to NDA. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we have a Deputy Director General of the DSS that is a woman. That role did exist. Nobody ever assumed that role. But when they decided to, recommend to Mr. President, they recommended a woman in intelligence. Trust me, the women in this country are phenomenal. We have the capacity. We just have to stop seeing ourselves as victims.
Thank you.
And go back to the drawing board
Honourable
and
Minister.
plan how we can go forward with strength, addressing all the gaps.
And
But we
pull
can do
women
it.
up.
Yes, we can do it.
We have to go on break now.
Yes.
So that I thank you for staying with us. We've been discussing the International Women's Day, albeit a day earlier. And we've had a robust conversation so far. And to continue that, let me head to Benin, our Benin studio, where we have the Honorable Commissioner for Women Affairs. Honorable Commissioner, I just wanted to find out from you, social development and, goes hand in hand with gender equality. How is your ministry ensuring that women's empowerment programs lead to long-term benefits?
Thank you. In my ministry, we have embarked on the aspect of social development fully. Yesterday, we opened a child shelter, or a 20-bed children's shelter, center. We also had the before yesterday acquisition centers, one in Uzea Uromi and the other one in Igara in Akoko Edo. My ministry is going beyond the usual skills acquisition. We are very into farming. We are very into export of gari from Sako West. We've reached out to some corporate bodies who are willing to collaborate with my ministry so that we can go to areas hitherto not gone. For me, with the permission of my governor, we are interested in protecting the women of Edo from heinous crimes. But beyond this, we want to empower the woman of Edo. For me, it may not resonate with others. An empowered woman, either by education or financially, is able to defend herself from such acts of violence, either from people in her family, spousal abuses, or from strangers on the street. Today being International Women's Day, according to one of the speakers in the studio, shouldn't be a day where we talk about women equality or protection. For me, as Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, every working day I sit on this chair, I would make sure the women are protected. I will make sure the people living with disabilities are protected. I will make sure the vulnerable people are taken care of. But what I will not accept, or what I will not focus on, as women playing victims, those that call themselves widows, but they are able to fend for themselves, they have good knowledge of, they have skills, and they just want to be referred to as widows. We would want to encourage them to get into the workforce, because we have very powerful single women who have trained their children on their own. So being a widow should not be a stigma, but we will not also tolerate families that persecute women who have lost their husbands. So holistically, I think the social development aspect of the ministry that I head is something that would look into all the areas. We have people living with mental illness. We're not going to abandon them. We have people who have impaired vision. We have people who are orphans but are willing to be employed. So we're going all out as a ministry to be the humane face of His Excellency Governor Okpebholo's government, because you can do all structural, infrastructural development. You can have all the beautiful roads. A road paved with gold is not acceptable to a woman who is hungry or a woman who is battered. So for me, I want to go alongside the vision of my governor in protecting the women of Edo, the children of Edo, and those that are less equal in other ways. And economic empowerment is my focus. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Chief B.C. Jaume Esquire, Honorable Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, Edo State. We understand that you have some other pressing engagements and would leave us at this time. Many thanks for your insights, and of course, we wish you all the best. All right, let's get back here in the studio, and of course, it's now time to begin to round up this conversation. We've talked about the issues, the challenges, but you see, like the topic is speeding up progress. What can we do now? What can we continue to do just so that we can change the narrative? The Beijing Declaration, 30 years already. I mean, how can we really get there such that we can have equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal power for women? Dr. Adeni, your thoughts?
Thank you very much for this. So as we wrap up, I would like to start with this as individuals. Where do you draw up your value system from? Are you drawing it up from social media where they're going about spreading the news, where it is negative news that thrives? Or are you going to be going about receiving positive values, values like respect? Because we've seen that these things are fading out in our society today. We see young people calling out elder people and then just disrespecting them. Is that going to be your choice? No. What we stand for, and what I stand for at Hassan Foundation, is ensuring that we have a community where each and every one of us harness our potential. You were made for more. You were created for more. Look at what we can do better as an individual. What can I do better? How can I contribute positively to the progress of my nation, of my community, of my family? As a woman, how can I impact and influence the children that I put in my care? As a husband, as a man, how can I behave more? How can I empower my wife, encourage them? How can I be present for my children and not leave everything over to my wife? We need to have this as individual. At the government position, yes, the government this administrator has done fantastic bringing people on board. But we need to do more. We need to act more. There is a percentage that we need to add more women, because if women are not as represented fully as they should be in all the different spaces, we've seen progress in some areas, but we still need to do more. We need to represent the women. The women that have the capacity, we need to come forward and know that, yes, this is what we're doing. At Hashtag Foundation, we did an outreach to the grassroots level. We need to also not just focus at the leadership level. The grassroots needs to be met. And we did this in collaboration with the Women Affairs Secretariat and the FCTA. We need to make sure that we are reaching out to each and every one at the grassroots, not fighting them, because I do not have the femininity mentality where we insult people. No, it's not with fight, it's not with insult, because every individual, they deserve a level of respect.
All right.
So we need to make sure that these are the values, the positive values, where we treat people as humans and not as things. We have these positive values.
Thank
this
you.
is where I'm going to wrap up for today.
Thank you, Dr. Adeni. Now, Lady E, we hear a lot about giving women a voice, but how do we ensure that media platforms genuinely, amplify women's issues and not just tokenize them?
Program planning is key in media. So you have to be intentional about your audience. If you know there's a gap in your audience that you serve and specific needs are not met, then it's time to do that. The digital age is a leveler. It has given us something that is extraordinary, that multiplies, that scales, that pivots. So as media organizations, one of the key things we must do is this. And this also goes two ways. The women who are listening to us, who will be invited by the media to come on board. When you're invited, please attend. Please respond. Don't say, oh, my English no good.
When we approach you for Vox Pop.
You don't understand, Vox Pop. Honorary Vox Pop on the street.
That's the one you hate to do the most.
I know, right? Honorary Vox Pop. So we're telling our women, please, even if not pidgin they speak, I'm doing this deliberately now. Even if not pidgin you they speak the pidgin. We know this is an English program, but we must get to a point where we also understand that in media, language is everything. So even if you're trying to reach an international audience, let the audience also know that you're incorporating your audience.
We can translate.
I'm saying that. You know what I mean? Translation is good. But we want to get to a point where our people watching us know that we have factored in our language, in the program format, in the storytelling, that we're deliberately incorporating them. Sometimes just visual representation of more women than none at all. So, for example, you're telling a story about something. Maybe more men contributed in the conversation. Maybe there were less women. You can actually compensate for that visually with pictures of more women to balance the equation. Then another thing is this. Women must understand that you have to go out to the ship. Don't wait for the ship to come to you. Sail to it. I have experienced that in my life. I have never, ever waited for something to come to me. I visualize what I want to do. I have a plan for where I want to go and how I'm going to go about it. I execute it. Then I look for the network or the connections that I need to be able to tap into that space that will increase the vibration of the outcome that I'm seeking. So women must not get, one, accountability. I will not negotiate that. We have not raised women to be very accountable. That's why entitlement mentality still persists. So we must begin to help them see, what does accountability look like? It means taking charge of your choices. Your value. What is your value as a woman? As you are thinking right now, what is your value? You need to write it down. What are your beliefs? There's a difference between religious beliefs and then your personal beliefs. What are your personal beliefs? Then you have to decide, okay, what is your political mindset? Because you have to have one political mindset. If you don't have a political mindset, you will not understand how politics, the decision makers, actually influence the outcomes of your life or the way that you live. So you've got to have that. Then you must also, by all means, understand that other women are your friends. Change that lens. Replace it instantly. Even when women are giving you negative vibe, don't amplify that vibe. Just note it, push it down, bury it. Then think of how you improve your emotional intelligence and say, okay, I am getting this vibe. how do I counter it in the most effective, positive, and inspiring way? And I can tell you, you will get what you see.
How do we change the vibe such that it is positive all the time from women?
Okay, let's be realistic as well. We are human beings. Men, the difference or the advantage men has is this. For many years, men have dominated, in Nigeria specifically, men have dominated the decision-making spaces, the political spaces, and even the business spaces. I mean, for goodness sakes, as at 1900s, right, women were not allowed to vote anywhere. You get what I mean? But that has changed. Whether there was Beijing or not, we have come to a point where we must understand that, look, as people, we have to be conscientious about the decisions we make. The world has changed. I said it. We're in a digital age, the knowledge era. It's what you have here that is going to sell you. That's your leveler. Tap into it. There are spaces to learn how to develop your emotional intelligence. There are spaces to learn how to learn negotiating skills. There are spaces where you learn, okay, when this person is giving me this vibe, how do I improve it? Because it's a human behavior. We will always, come against each other. There may not be a right time. You also must time how you have a conversation. If the timing is not right, somebody may not respond to you. It may mean push it to next time. Or you may mean go to another person. Or it may mean maybe you retrain your strategy or your approaches. So there's always room for that developmental improvement and character development.
All right. Thank you very much, Lady E. Honorable Minister, where do we go from here? Are there programs and policies that Nigerians can expect from government to, fast-track gender equality?
When I assumed this role, the clear statement I made was, it's women o'clock. We've never had it this good as women in Nigeria, where Mr. President is a he for she. I think he's the number one he for she. How many men leave office and promote their wives to remain in leadership position for many years? Not many men. Even when they cannot hold the red barrel, they would rather be there. So Mr. President is he for she. The Senate President is he for she. The Speaker, they have all given me their word that they would support any gender bill that goes to the House. We have a Supreme Court judge that is a woman. We have a lot of he for she's that are speaking for us. The Deputy Speaker is leading when it comes to the gender bill. So I think that as women, we must align our efforts to ensure that this season counts for all of us. From the ministry side, we've come up, after doing a total scan of the environment, of our social sector, we've done a roadmap, the National Action Plan for 2025 to 2028, for 3 years. And this comes strongly from the economic empowerment, corner, whereby already we have the Nigerian for Women project. It's a $500 million project that has been run by federal government, subnationals, and the World Bank. Through this program, we're targeting to empower 4.5 million women. That would, in turn, affect many households and many numbers of people. The pilot stage with only 6 states was able to empower about 500,000 women. We kind of invested $12 million into their hands, and they were able to save $4.8 million. We had small clusters of, affinity groups that were running their businesses. So times are gone whereby you decide... Is it by way of
grants, or what's the empowerment like?
Yes, there are grants, but they kind of save them and all that. So I'll come in and then speak about the program, because it's not properly promoted, and people should know that, that something like that exists. But this is for grassroots women. So we form them into groups. So we don't decide what trade they do. In the past, when they do intervention, they give you keke napep, they give you sewing machine, or if you don't want to sew. So these are interest affinity groups that come together on their own, form those groups, and then we support them with funding. So amongst those groups, I think we have almost 50,000 affinity groups or thereabout. They've been able to save $4.2 million. So just kind of, convert that into Naira. So a lot is happening. And from the, for the formal sector women, we're going to have a revolving loan. We're already working on a plan to have a microfinance bank for women that would give them a single-digit interest loan so that they're able to access finance. Because as I speak to you today, the interest rate is almost about 30% or so. But when women can access a 4% or 5% interest loan, it's a revolving loan. That way they can be able to do. Women are credit-worthy, they're reliable, they're dependable, they pay back their loans. When you live here and you start to drive to my village, Kefi, you see a lot of women that own small businesses, and they will welcome the idea of having extra financing to be able to expand their businesses. And talking about the formal sector, you have a lot of women that have been on a business for 30 years. One of the ladies who does my dresses, audio, she's been doing her business for 30 years. With an extra finance of about maybe 50, 100 million, or even $1 billion, she can be able to mentor other women and grow beyond where she is because she has already learned the art. So yes, economic empowerment is covered. We're going to do a lot around economic empowerment. We're also having partnerships with the private sector whereby, to enhance financial inclusion. And they're also contributing. When you talk about protection of women, we're also coming very strongly from the angle of strengthening our legal instruments. You talk about the Child Rights Act. The Child Rights Act is 23 years old without review. These are pieces of legal instruments that should be reviewed after every 4 to 5 years. But for 23 years, the instrument that protects our children in Nigeria has not been reviewed. So I've set up a committee that is reviewing it already.
Fantastic plans, Honourable Minister. But I'm just thinking...
Don't cut me because I'm giving very good information.
Yes, you continue. Are you doing something about women who are already in leadership positions? I'm asking that because, just this administration, we've seen some women who have... Some have tempted misused positions that they got, or if you like, not really represented women in the light that they should. Yeah. Are you doing something such that women who are in leadership position, show some form of, if you like, excellence, in holding such positions and not bring disrepute to the women?
What I tell women is that we have to be very careful. What a man will do once, it take you to do it 4 to 10 times before you're being recognized. And what a man would do and would be ignored, a woman, when you do it, that's what they amplify. With every respect, let me talk about Desiani. How many Desianis do we have that are men? Nobody talks about them. But whenever a woman is going somewhere, they talk about Desiani. So that's why we must ensure that we are at our best. And we do things thinking about our general goal as women. Because one thing a woman does would cause us a setback from where we're going. So we have to be extra careful. Because they're not used to seeing women in the space. So when a woman comes and she does something that is wrong, they kind of try to amplify it. But that shouldn't deter us. Because we kind of know what they're doing. Kind of know what they're doing. And the advice I give us women is for us to be able to work on ourselves. And that's why mentoring comes in. I have a mentoring caucus at every level, for young girls, for people my age, because mentoring is 2 ways. While you learn, you also teach. So mentoring is key. And the women who must, have that strive for knowledge. Just like I said at the opening of this program when I came, is if you know the rules, you can play the game. You cannot play the game and win if you don't know the rules. If you're going to the Senate, you know the rules of the Senate. If you want to be in governance, you know the rules of governance. If you find yourself in an office, you have to go and read the act. So whatever space you find yourself, you have to learn and keep learning. Because they said that leaders are readers. And school is never out for the pro. And one thing my late father always says is that, Iman, you have to constantly learn across sectors, not just your space. Because once you know it, it gives you extra power. Nobody can break your head and take out what you know, because that's your power.
All right, fantastic point and fine place to look.
So I think it's very important to speak about protection, because that's, recently we've seen a lot of cases of GBV, SGBV.
It looks like we're going to have a special program where we'll have you come back,
no problem.
And talk about some of all these programs and what
But before I kind of close, on behalf of all the Nigerian women, first of all, while we celebrate the International Women's Day, International Women's Month, and because it's our 30 years of Beijing, I must thank all the stakeholders, particularly Mr. President, for his demonstration of political will and prioritization for all issues in our social sector, particularly women. For the first time, we've seen an increase in our domestic resources. It is unprecedented, and we must thank Mr. President, we must thank the National Assembly, we must thank the economic team. And secondly, I would like to wish all the women in Nigeria a happy International Women's Month.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Honorable Minister Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, for your insights and for coming on the program. Like we already said, we're going to have you again, and of course it will be more detailed. You have time, to speak on all your interventions and programs that you have planned. Thank you so much once again, Honorable Minister. I would also like to appreciate Dr. Olajumoke Adeni, Head of Operations, Hassan Foundation, and Gender Advocate. It was a pleasure having you again, and yes, in all your programs, we wish you the very best. Lady Ejiro Bukoro, author, Distortion. and Executive Director of Light Ray Media. Continue to push the narrative, or if you like, change the narrative in your space. We do sincerely appreciate you. And of course, we do also want to appreciate Chief B.C. Delmi, who joined us in the course of the conversation. Looks like that's what time will permit us this Friday. International Women's Day is tomorrow. Take care of every woman. I'm Ian Ray John. Live it locked on the NTA.
And I am Victor, so have a great weekend and see you again on Monday.